All right, now we're recording.
Alrighty.
Uh, gonna be honest, man. Gonna be
Mm.
100% honest. Ain't got much for you this week.
Oh.
I fucked myself up this week. Pretty good. I did. I did a massive clean in our kitchen, throwing stuff out,
Mm.
getting stuff like actually done. From the last roommate, there was still like a lot of shit in the drawers and stuff that we
Oh.
just never took care of or got rid of because we were
Mm-hmm.
lazy. So I spent like my entire day like deep cleaning the kitchen, and I paid for that
Mm.
shit. Yeah, I
Sort of a pre-spring clean.
yeah, I paid for that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if I was gonna be here because I was like, oh fuck, I'm in so much pain. Yeah, I paid for that. That was
Mm.
a poor decision on my part. Thankfully
Whoops.
I'm feeling better, but still that fucked me up. That fucked me up royally.
Mm.
Mm, 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 mm. Sitting here looking at all these games and shit, and I don't know where I want to fucking
Mm-hmm.
start. Oh, I haven't done much because I just don't really. I don't know, I'm taking a break. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
uploading stuff. I'm just
Oh.
taking a break in
Mm-hmm.
general because I'm just like, fuck. I
And you
never
still have
really.
some material in reserve.
Oh, I have quite a bit. Like way more than you might give me credit for.
All right.
Remake. I still got one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight for
Uh-huh.
remake, and then the DLC thing. I probably got a solid like seven. Five or oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's
All
probably
right.
close to
Yeah.
like seven. So yeah, I got plenty.
Mm.
That's not the issue. Content is not the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a solid like 10 already done, like already recorded for Arise. So like
Ah.
I already got shit in the tank. That's
Mm-hmm.
I got content in
That's
the tank.
good.
I'm just taking a break 'cause I just
Mm-hmm.
there's all these things I want to play like for myself and everything, and I just
Mm-hmm.
don't know where to fucking. I'm having
Yeah.
choice
Choice
paralysis.
paralysis.
Yeah, choice paralysis. That's what's getting me. There's too much shit.
Mm-hmm.
Way too many options and shit that I can play. And then I'm like, oh, I could play this, but I should really work on
Mm-hmm.
this. But I really want to play this.
Mm.
But if I start this, I'm not gonna want to finish. It's just,
Mhm.
it's a problem.
Mhm.
It's a goddamn problem. So, there's a couple things
In
I
terms of
might.
a
Hmm.
huh? In
What
terms of
now?
a rise, how many people do you have in the party there currently?
Uh, I'll have four once I get law.
Ah,
We're
okay.
dealing we're dealing with that drama right now about him and
Ah.
his dad, and that's going over.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm.
going over very well. I'm loving.
As one would expect.
Yeah, daddy issues. So that's going over
Mhm.
swimmingly. And then there's
Mm.
is there anything else I really want to pick up this month? I mean, one of the games we'll talk about one of them. I'm planning on picking up.
Mhm.
I'm debating. Like
Mm.
I know what I'm getting myself into, but
Mm.
we'll talk about it. Don't worry. We'll get
Sounds
there.
like it's a big one.
It's a big one. It's part of the show this week. It's part of the show. We'll get there. But yeah, man,
Mhm.
choice paralysis sucks a dick. So I've been trying to
Mhm.
like not overdo it and just like do some light shit and like not like
Mhm.
stress myself out and like incidentally overwork myself to the point to where I'm like a fucking mess the next day and I can barely move. Not
Mhm.
fun. Don't do that. Don't do that, kids.
Mm.
If you are medically fucked up,
Yeah.
don't overdo it. It's not worth it. You will pay for it. 4 days. Trust me.
And
I
yeah.
know.
And even if there's no medical issues, overworking is never really a good thing.
Yeah, overworking very rarely. It very rarely ever
Yeah.
goes well. I was talking to a buddy of mine because I'm gonna be working on a project with him soon, and
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about like I was talking about some like new stuff we cover, right? Because like the stuff
Uh-huh.
he does, it's less news related and just kind of just more like
Mm-hmm.
topic of the week that they just want to talk about or something. So they're a little bit more on the
Mm-hmm.
topical side, where we tend to take on more of the
Yeah,
current
more current events.
current events type of thing and current trends and
Mm-hmm.
shit.
Yeah.
And we had this, and I was explaining to him about the layoffs that we covered, like the
Mm-hmm.
mass amount of
Mm-hmm.
layoffs in the industry. And
Yeah.
I think it was Asper and Embracer comes up, right? And
Mm-hmm.
at what point do you go from poor business acumen to sheer incompetence? He's like,
Mm.
at what point do you look at someone like Embracer? Like what they did
Mm-hmm.
betting on that Saudi Arabia deal was the
Mm-hmm.
equivalent of me going into a casino, throwing down my house mortgage on black, and being like, "Yo, I got this, boys. Oh, we here today. Red.
Uh,
Fuck."
I'm not. I'm not quite so sure if I'd put it on the same level, considering they did have quite a few talks about that, and it was pretty much this close to closure. And then the other party pretty much jumped off at the last point, and I'd imagine those talks have been going on for a long time.
They jumped
Sure,
ship.
putting a lot on something like that is a problem, but I'm not sure I'd put it on incompetence.
You wouldn't put it as
Not
incompetence.
necessarily. It's not a really. It doesn't seem like a really good strategy overall, but not necessarily incompetence. It's a combination of maybe not a great strategy combined with massive bad luck.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, bad luck. Yeah,
Hmm.
really bad luck. You know what else is bad luck?
Hmm.
Betting your house mortgage on black at the casino.
Yeah, but that's a bit of on a different level.
Some might say that's also bad luck. A very different scale of bad luck. Yes, you are very
Hmm.
right, but still bad luck. So yeah,
Yeah, but that's willfully going into that.
I haven't had a lot to like
Hmm.
do that I really
Hmm.
want to like do because again, choice paralysis is a
Yeah.
bitch when you have all the choices in the world
Mm.
and
Oh yeah.
plenty
Steam
of
backlogs can be a bitch, for example. Not that much
yeah,
for you, but for other people, they know
yeah.
how that feels.
Backlogs are a bitch. That's
Hmm.
because like, and what makes it worse. Before I end my bit, what makes it
Hmm.
worse for me, I can't say this
Hmm.
is everybody, but I think for me this is like especially bad, is because I pruned so much of my collection and so much of my current standing games that I own down to shit I know I'll play. It's
Hmm.
no longer a matter. It's no longer a matter of just having a bunch of shit to pick from. It's a bunch of shit
Hmm.
I want to play. That's the problem. Like
Hmm.
because I
You can't.
pruned it, I don't
Hmm.
have the luxury of just saying, well, half this shit I'll get to eventually. No, it's like it's all shit I want to play.
Hmm.
Like,
Not
yeah,
like you go through the list and say, okay, I don't really want to play that. I don't really want to play that. Don't really want to play that. And then at some point you get to points where you want to play them, but you start off with, okay, I want to play this, but I also want to play this, but I also want to play this, but I also want to play this.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of my gaming is probably going to
Mm-hmm.
happen. Maybe not now, just because there's
Mm-hmm.
like so many other elements right now that's like bouncing around in my head at all at the same time that I'm trying to just
Mm-hmm.
I think I hate to say this because I don't know what mindset I'll be in once it's over. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
once I have the procedure and I'm basically laid up for like 8 weeks, I'll
Mm-hmm.
probably be in a much different headspace towards like, well, shit, I got nothing else going on. I'm not gonna be
Mm-hmm.
trying to do anything, so I might as well engage with the content that I now have access to. I
Yeah. At some point, you just have to make the call and say either pick the first one from the list or use
pick
something
something.
to pick a
Pick
random number.
Yeah, pick something. Fucking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'll get there. I'll figure that
Mm-hmm.
out. I got plenty of things to pick from. Surprisingly, way too many are Switch games. So I will
Mm-hmm.
eventually figure it out. So until then, I'll just have to continue doing what I'm doing. That's all I
Mm-hmm.
can do. Just do what you do.
Yeah.
Can't do anything more than that, baby. It's gotta.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I won't even start this until episode I guess comes out. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like the idea that I bought this not to play it till fucking September, but here we are, motherfuckers.
Yeah, it
Does not
happens.
bring me joy. Believe me, not happy about that. That's not a
Mm-hmm.
realization I enjoy having to fucking grapple with. But
Mm-hmm.
CD, you are a much more productive, much more motivated, a
Mm-hmm.
strong-willed human being than me. So I'm sure you've done something of value, of note, this past week.
Yeah.
Please tell
While
me. please,
while I did
please.
have a lot of work to do, so at the I didn't do as much as I planned, but there was a release this week that I decided to jump on. Considering I did find a source for a key that's cheaper than the release on Steam, so got me that. So I am currently working towards going into the Forbidden West in the Second Horizon on Steam. Hmm. Yeah. And in contrast to the first Horizon, this release is pretty good right from the get-go.
Oh, are we talking
Stable,
like
all right
gameplay or
performance.
performance? Like,
Um, what the release state was like with
oh,
in
okay, yeah,
comparison.
yeah.
There have been no crashes, no slowdowns or stuff like that, no hiccups in that department. The only things of note for me were at a few points I had some short black screens due to shader compilation, which, yeah, that's nothing terrible. And it only happened when I was just walking around, so didn't really interrupt anything badly. So that's good. The other thing is the interface has some small things. One thing is on the quest menu. When I open the different quest categories, the ones I've selected previously stay selected in terms of how they look. So when I select something, it's colored yellow. If it's not selected, it's colored white normally. And here, when I click through them, they stay yellow, each one of them. So there seems to be something there that's not quite working. And sometimes when I scroll through the quest list of the category, they get stuck.
Oh,
But yeah, some finagling, usually some switching back and forth, switching into another category in the menu and stuff. That usually fixes it, but it's still something they need to work on. And the other thing that's kind of interesting is in the map. When I try to select a marker, I have to adjust the mouse cursor depending on where the marker is. It's like when I'm let's say I'm in the middle of the screen and the marker is to the right. I have to move the mouse cursor a bit more to the right than the location. And then it highlights it. Kind of seems like a issue from translating from gamepad to mouse, which apparently happens with other titles as well. Like they have set it to a certain resolution internally, but it kind of overshoots when you do it
Yeah.
at a different resolution. And I'm playing at 4K with DLSS, so I'm not quite sure what the internal resolution is at that point, but probably pretty close to 4K since it's just a map screen. So I have to just scroll a bit more with the mouse into that direction, and then it gets highlighted. So you can get used to it, but I do hope they kind of fix that with updates. But besides that, gameplay wise and everything, it's been perfectly fine. Put a few hours in so far. Yeah, it's fun. And controls with keyboard and mouse is perfectly good.
That's great. I love hearing about PC
Mm-hmm.
releases that don't come out the gate.
Nixis has done good work this time.
I was about to say, I don't recall the Horizon Zero Dawn. Did they do the first one too?
I think so. Let me quickly check.
I don't want to give them undue credit for something they didn't do.
Because if they did the first one, then they definitely learned from that.
Oh, was the first one? I couldn't remember if the first one was a little rough.
It was very rough. Let's see. Is this note? Who did it? Maybe Moby Games has the info.
You mean the venerable Moby Games?
Yes, exactly that
one. the venerable, the elderly Moby Games, if you will.
You could say that. Interesting. This doesn't actually say there's a port studio involved, and Nixus has not been mentioned here. So they might have done that one internally and just gone to Nixus after the fact for the second one, because they learned, okay, maybe maybe it's better if we don't do this internally. Others are better suited for this.
Yeah, but I feel like PC is such a different beast for how you code. The more I learn about development on my own, like not even wanting to be a developer, just like learning about the bits about it. As much as people like to say, well, it's super easy. Just build your game for the PC first and scale everything back down to the... It's not like, that sounds great. That sounds great, but that's not how that works. That's not...
Yeah, it's a nice theory, but there are some factors that work against that. For example, one big difference is that the memory is one shared bit on the consoles, and it's two different bits on the PC. You have your system memory and your graphics card memory. Completely different on the PC. On the consoles, you have a shared big memory, which, yeah. In some PC systems, you have that as well when you have an onboard graphics card, but it's usually shared internally differently. So the game still sees it as separate memory.
Yeah, it's not...
that makes it difficult. Arkham Knight, for example, when they ported that to the PC, had an issue because of that.
That was like,
for example,
that was like the biggest thing I heard during the PS. I'm sure you heard it too during the PS4 generation. Whoa, I could fix this entire problem. It's easy. Build your game for the PC first and scale it back for the console. It's really easy, guys. And I'm like,
People that have
ah,
never done something like that usually like to make it sound easy.
yeah,
And
and I'm not even saying
it,
I've done an abundance of research on the matter. I'm not even trying to like claim
mm-hmm,
that. I'm just saying the little bit of research I've done.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, PC building a game for PC, unless you're a studio who's already like familiar with building things on PC or just getting things to work on PC. Because it's
mm-hmm.
not as simple. Like if you're working with a game that was made for console, like you're not like
Can
yeah,
be an issue.
you're not rebuilding it from scratch, so to speak, but you are messing a
Mm-hmm.
lot with the
Yeah.
internal
Mm-hmm.
bits.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
If
it's
you
not.
if you don't take if you don't pay enough attention to how you change the internal bits, there can be big issues there.
Yeah, so
Like you can make sure that it works by doing stuff like, okay, I set my requirements for the memory to the same as on the console. That way, there's less of an issue there. But if you want really good performance on PC as well, then you have to make additional changes. Like
right.
what Nix's did, because the performance is really good on this one.
Yeah, see, it's not
Loading
uh
times, for example, when you have a good NVMe SSD, can be even slightly better than on the PS5 because they
oh,
also use the new direct storage API that Microsoft made for PC
I'm
that they adapted from the Xbox.
gonna be honest, I was just watching a
Hmm.
video complaining about how this generation hasn't done much for
Hmm.
gaming and about how like we still have shit tons of loading times in games and I'm like, do we though? At least the
Hmm.
games I've played. And I'm like,
It depends very much
maybe?
on the game.
I'm like, maybe?
Depends very much on the game, I'd
But
say.
depending on how they're hiding it, I might not be as
Hmm.
savvy to know it. Like
Yeah.
we're not talking about the obvious Mass Effect sitting on an elevator waiting to hit to your
Hmm.
destination. Like, you know what I mean? We're a little bit more savvy than
Yeah.
that these days.
Yeah,
I
although some releases that are relatively recent, like FF7 Remake, had a problem with that.
yeah, no, there are elevators.
FF7 Remake does a lot that hides loading times. A lot.
Yeah, it does quite a bit. It
Every
does
time where you have sections where you can't run, where your speed
yeah.
gets slowed, where there's dialogue, that's very often hiding loading times.
See, I never that just never clicked with me because I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
cinematic. I'm like, oh, you're going for a cinematic.
And
Okay,
it's
fair
often
enough.
loading times because when you think back, it was a PS4 release. And
Yeah, that
that
makes
just has
sense.
an HDD, so they had to do a lot there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Fair
And it
enough.
shows. When you don't know about it, you can just think, okay, yeah, they have a lot of dialogue. They make it slower because of that, because they want to show you something. But when you know that and you think about it more, then you know, yeah, the running time or the running speed or the walking speed of your character, yeah, that's adapted dynamically because of that. Because
Yeah, I could.
in some sections when you run, sometimes you can run a bit faster, sometimes you can run slower. That's a change due to
Mm,
that.
I'll keep that in mind.
Hmm. So they have become a bit more adept at hiding it in contrast to just having a straight elevator section, but it's definitely still there
Yeah.
in such releases. But many releases don't have that much of an issue because they're not that extremely advanced in contrast to the system they get released on.
So, I'm gonna name this first story,
Hmm.
"Death by a Million Cuts."
Hmm.
Uh, G. What's G slash O? What is that? Is that the parent
Geo
company?
Media.
Okay,
Yeah,
Geo Media
that's the
is
parent
effectively
company.
forcing Kotaku to pivot away from news and demanding its staff of 7 writers churn out an impossible number of guides per week. Not what writers signed up for, not why people visit Kotaku in the first place. Uh, yeah, so this is interesting. It looks like Kotaku had
Hmm.
quite the shakeup. Uh,
Yeah, you could say that.
quite the shakeup, especially with their editor in chief resigning on the 21st of this month due to the new
Hmm.
editorial edict, so to speak.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, I will say this. I am slightly surprised they only have a staff of 7 writers though. Was that
Hmm.
was that a recent thing that they knocked down the like
Um,
7? Is that normal? I feel like that's
I have no
incredibly
idea.
small.
I never really pay
Thought of it.
attention to how many people actually work at Kotaku.
Oh, I assumed Kotaku was huge. I don't know why I made that assumption. I didn't think there were
Hmm.
some mom and pop blog. Just
I mean, they
I
might
mean,
have they might have a small stay group, mainstay people, and a lot of freelancers, I'm guessing. But how many there are actually there currently? No idea. And over time, but there have been quite a few changes there over the last several years. So, but especially due to how well comparatively little sites like this make in terms of revenue, I'm not too surprised that there aren't that many people working there.
well, yeah. I mean, there are other ways for people to get media, for people to get news, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
these sites are basically just aggregators at that point. Like I would make the argument how much of what's on the site isn't just aggregated from
Mm,
some other source.
yeah,
I
for
mean,
one
you could.
that, and
I mean, you
I
could
don't know
make.
how many breaking stories they've done in the recent past. Because ever since Jason Schreier has left them, he was pretty much the only journalist with an actual education in journalism. Stories, and I don't know how many things have been actually done from them, but yeah.
So yeah, that's I don't like. I want to like that sucks, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, we've never hidden the lack of care we have towards Kotaku in general.
Mm-hmm.
So death by 1,000 cuts to me doesn't necessarily strike me as entirely unreasonable given some of the
I'll
bullshit that
say,
comes out of their faces throughout the years.
mm, I'll say independently on how I feel towards the site. This request certainly seems like an unreasonable one by
It's
the editorial mandate.
it
Because,
I'll tell you what it sounds
hmm
like.
hmm
It sounds like they want people to quit.
yeah, it's kind of sounds like setting them up to fail.
Yeah,
Because
it sounds
50
like you want
per
to roll
week.
the stat. It sounds like you want to roll your staff out of there, but you don't want to bother paying them anything to do so. So you're not
Mm-hmm.
going to lay them
Because,
off. So you're just
yeah.
going to give them an impossible task and hope they fucking burn out and
Mm-hmm.
quit.
Mm-hmm. Because 50 guides a week for 7 people, that's close to impossible to generate quality guides in that
50
amount.
divided by 7.
That would be, well,
That's
depending
about
on how
7.
many days you count, that's 10 per day.
Oh, I did
Depending on how
50.
many days you count per week, obviously. So if they
Oh,
add the
yeah.
weekend, then sure, you can
I
say it's less than 10, but still. And then that's 1 point something per person. And then you still would want the site to have news and other stuff. So
I just
that's Whew.
I just divided it by how many writers
Mm-hmm.
there were. So
Yeah.
I came up with 7.14. So
Mm-hmm.
7.14 guides per writer would be
Per writer.
necessary
So
to
that's at least one per day, if you
uh,
count the whole week
yeah,
for
if you
that.
count the
So
whole week. Like
that's no free days and things like that.
that's that ugh.
Yeah. And then you'd likely yeah, those people would likely want to have some news on the site as well and some other things and not have the site turned into a complete guide site. And preferably maybe have the guides be a yeah, have a decent amount of quality to them, maybe. So
I don't know.
if
If
you
you're
count all
push
that, this would be,
this would be disastrous.
hmm yeah. And while I'll say guides are a decent source of income, I'll say in general, because people want them. People read them, people click on them, people watch them on YouTube. They generate revenue, that's for sure.
Right.
So, in terms of that, I'm not sure how the financial situation for Kotaku and Geo Media in general is, but if their goal is we need more income, it would be a decent pivot in a more reasonable with more reasonable requirements. Not with this. This
Yeah.
seems more like halfway into reasonable, halfway into completely unreasonable.
Yeah, it sounds like someone's taking the piss if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Yeah.
buying it. So, all right, guys, listen. This next story, I'm gonna let CD do because I read it. I did. I sat down.
Mm-hmm.
I think I read this a few days ago because I was looking over the notes and this story
Mm-hmm.
was there, and I'm reading through it, and I'm like, and part of me was like, maybe you made a mistake, right? Like maybe you were
Mm-hmm.
writing this up and you made a mistake. Because I'm like, this seems almost comical for you to include on here as an actual show note, but it's also you, so you might be having a
Mm-hmm.
laugh at my expense.
So which one did you mean by
Scream.
that? Is it the screaming?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, when I saw that, I didn't think it. I thought it was a bit weird as well. But hey, apparently GDC is currently going on, and several developers met up and just screamed at a GD Scream meetup. I. What are words? this is just. This is just comical.
Look,
I mean,
I'm not really.
I'd expect something like this from younger people that I've been around when I still was managing part of a team at an anime club quite a few years back. I'd expect something like this those from those people that were there as visitors. I wouldn't necessarily expect like something like this from grown adults.
I don't I don't make it a personal goal to like roll my
Mm-hmm.
eyes at people for their profession or how they feel about it, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, guys. Y'all turned up to GDC. This is not a small event. GDC is not like this isn't like
Not that small.
yeah, it's this is not like this is
It's
not
not a
like some
giant event, but it's not a giant event. Like, I don't know how many people are there overall, but it's not let's say, a two, 3 dozen people there. as
Yeah,
an event.
this isn't like a con, some con at some shopping mall somewhere, or at like a, you know what I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
some small time con or
Yeah.
something. These people showed up to like an event and did this. So
Mm-hmm.
look, I don't know whether, like, according to this article, the scream was organized
Mm-hmm.
by Scott John Siegel and Carl Shaw in response to growing discontent among game developers in the face of ongoing industry mass layoffs, as well as coordinated harassment campaigns against marginalized individuals and overall fears of worsening industry conditions. Hold on, CD. Now listen,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I will roll my eyes at some of this, but I will say
Mm-hmm.
the industry is kind of on the fucked side. I will, for
I
what,
mean, there's
for
certainly problems. I'm not arguing against that.
yeah, for
Definitely.
what, for once, and I cannot believe I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying this. The majority of what's written here is actually on the side of reality and not on
Yeah.
the side of a straw man. So I
Mm-hmm.
will give them that much. Yeah,
Yeah.
the industry you're a part of is trash.
Has
My
problems. Definitely.
yeah, my thing is y'all showed up to this thing and decided to have a scream, just to scream it out like, yo, this is
I mean, this seems like neither a productive nor a very effective way of dealing with things.
So there's two ways to look at this, CD.
Mm-hmm.
There's two.
Mm-hmm.
There is the cynical, dark approach, which
Mm-hmm.
is they realize there's nothing they believe there's nothing they can do, and that they're basically stuck on a
Mm-hmm.
sinking ship that's going to take them all out in the long run. All right,
Mm-hmm.
fine. That's the
Hmm.
cynically dark side to this story.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're a bunch of comical children that just decided to show up to an event and scream in front of a bunch of people. That which I don't know. I can't see inside of people's hearts. I don't know, CD. But those are the two options, and I don't know which.
Mm-hmm.
And they both seem very logical and reason. Well, no, they're not. I wouldn't say logical or reasonable, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, they are both things that could happen.
Um, the question would be,
Oh no.
why don't you do this? Why? What advantage do you have when you do this in public, in a big group, and broadcast it to everyone?
No,
What's the
the
change? You
article.
just
The
do
article.
this on your own. Yeah, and what does the article do?
I
Except people looking at you funny.
I guess gets their message out. I guess gets their message. I don't know. Look, outside of that, I don't have an answer
Message.
for you. I guess. I mean, it's a message that they want to project. I could definitely see this as like some really weird, fucked up approach to activism, I guess, or like,
I was about to say, even those people that glue themselves to the street are projecting a more coherent message than screaming.
hey man, I I I didn't I don't got an answer for you,
Hmm.
but I can
I would have
or
been surprised if you would have, honestly.
but I can already tell you are on the side of deeply childish individuals and not the darkly cynical side that I mentioned.
I'm.
I don't
I mean,
know.
I see what some people are like on Twitter and all. So there we go.
All right. So, I'm just going to leave that train wreck by
Hmm.
itself to burn on the side of the road.
To
And
scream at the side of the road.
yeah,
Hmm.
the scream off on the side of the road for a bit, and we're gonna talk about Dragon's Dogma 2.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
from one childish or stupid thing to another.
all right, so I want to approach this in a way that makes sense for me because
Mm-hmm.
this is actually something that I posted in our chat
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to add a little context, not a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if this is the kind of context that's important, but it's still context, and I felt it would be
Probably.
relevant to this. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
It's probably
so
relevant. Yeah.
Dragon's Dogma is a
Two is
long-awaited
out.
is Dragon's Dogma 2 is a long-awaited sequel that people have been waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
And Capcom decided to do that funny little fucked up thing where you give a bunch of people access to the video game early. Don't
Mm-hmm.
mention that there's any microtransaction.
Actually,
Oh, did they
they
know?
did.
Oh, did
They
they?
did know.
They did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because none of the
Yep.
coverage
They told the people. They gave them the information about that.
none of them mentioned it.
But apparently those didn't mention it.
Yeah, they didn't. I didn't. I
Weirdly
hadn't even
enough. Yeah,
because
from what I've heard, I saw an Asmongold video where he looked at someone that had that info and he did that did the review. Apparently there was that in the press kit. So it was hidden from the public, but not just by Capcom.
okay, so they didn't do that funny little thing where they don't tell anybody. Okay, but I don't know if that
Not really,
makes
no.
them. I don't know if that makes them look any better. But for context,
And
I'll just.
and it's really not a surprise Capcom doing microtransactions in their releases. This has been an ongoing thing for now 10 years?
Since Dragon, oh, at least since Dragon Dogma 1.
At least.
Yeah, at
At
least.
least, yeah.
Bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's. So, game comes out, and, well, even, like, game comes out, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of hullabaloo about the
Yeah.
microtransactions, about
Mm-hmm.
the volume of microtrans. I want to address a couple of things, okay? Just a
Mm-hmm.
few things of note
Mm-hmm.
personally. One of the big ones that really ruffled people's nuts was the
Mm-hmm.
fast travel microtransaction.
Mm-hmm.
Now a lot of this, and
That's also a lot of misinformation going
yeah,
around.
the microtransaction. This actually came up with Josh Stripe Hayes because he did a video
Mm-hmm.
about pay to win. And
Mm-hmm.
shortly after he made that video, he made an addendum video
Mm-hmm.
because of some issues that came up with that video. Which, by the way, for the people who like gave him all that shit about his initial video,
Mm-hmm.
fuck you guys. That was not that you guys got out of pocket. There was no need for all that, but fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all acted like he betrayed your trust over a misspeak. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
fine. So, okay. The the warp crystals or fast travel
Mm-hmm.
crystals,
Yeah.
I'm
The port crystal.
actually a bit more on the fan side with this
Mm-hmm.
one than with some of the other things. The reason why
Mm-hmm.
is, as Josh Strife Hayes shows, there were numerous articles with the devs, and I think the primary creator of the game, where he talked
Mm-hmm.
about how if you have fast travel in your game, you don't want
Mm-hmm.
people to explore the world, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that people just use that as an excuse not to explore your game. Your game probably just doesn't have a world worth exploring if people are just gonna click fast travel to get everywhere. We want
Mm-hmm.
people to explore the game.
Yeah.
And this is not like a one-time thing. This comes up many
Mm-hmm.
interviews. He's been
Yeah,
pretty
sure.
vocal about this stance.
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah, when it
Mm-hmm.
shows up to be like in your microtransaction list, it was not a
Mm-hmm.
microtransaction, or
Not just. And it's different. It's not generic fast travel. It's not just free fast travel. The system works as such. Port crystals are the waypoints.
it's the
You can
waypoints.
have up to 10 of those in the world. One of them you can buy. But you can pretty much find at least 9 in the game. At least. I don't know how many it is exactly, but you can set up to 10 into the world anywhere. And then you have to use other crystals to actually do the fast travel. Those aren't part of the microtransactions. So you have to earn in-game crystals to use the fast travel anyway. And you also have the limited waypoints for that. Otherwise, you have the oxen transports. Like you have kind of like a travel system, like with the oxen carts and stuff like that, where you can travel between certain points. But there you also can encounter enemies during the travel, which you have to then defeat first before going on, stuff like that. So there really is only a special limited fast travel in the game, which does encourage traveling the world quite a bit more than a free fast travel system would. So essentially, all the microtransactions are time savers. None of
Yeah,
this locks a feature behind the
behind the game,
microtransaction.
behind anything.
It helps with getting to some things faster. That's true. But all of this you can get in game. There might be one slight exception, which would be the camping gear, but that's a detail that I'm not quite 100% on yet, because the camping gear is different in contrast to what you have at the beginning because it's lighter. It's around 4.5 kilos in comparison to the
Yeah,
seven
the one
kilos
you
that you
can
have
buy
in
is
game.
yeah, the one you can
At
buy is
first,
lighter, and it's
the first is 7. The second one you can get in game is 6. But I'm guessing there's probably additional lighter ones that you can get later in the game. But the one that you can get through the microtransaction is 4.5 kilos, which, yeah, that's an advantage, especially early on. That is notable, but it still doesn't lock anything. It's a time saver, quality of life, whatever you'd call it. So overall, the the discussion around this has been filled with misinformation because many people are talking about these microtransactions lock features behind them. This is they changed the balancing of the game. They did this, they did that.
well, I
It's a
okay,
completely overblown reaction.
so I don't want to. I don't
Hmm.
want to add credibility to a mob. That's not my. That's not my kick here.
Okay, go on.
That's not where I'm coming from.
Hmm.
But there would be the argument that if
Hmm.
you're going to have something that saves time as
Hmm.
a paid item,
Hmm.
logically you want people to buy that thing.
Hmm.
So you could make the argument that the game's been adjusted to
Hmm.
justify its existence. That's
Could
that's the
be.
argument.
Could could be.
That's the argument. I'm just putting
But
it out
one,
there.
so far, yeah, sure. So far, there hasn't been a lick of proof of that on that, and past Capcom releases don't either. So as far as I know, Devil May Cry 5 had the orbs that you could buy, which you need for the skills.
Mm-hmm.
Resident Evil 4 remake had the weapon tickets.
Right, which
And I think Devil May Cry 4, I think, also had the orbs, and other titles have similar things as well. But as far as I remember, no one really has shown that these have negatively changed the game, because especially Devil May Cry 5 and Resident Evil 4 have been praised through the roof. There has been no indication that a change has taken place. So, as long as someone shows any indication that this has taken place with Dragon's Dogma 2, I'm putting that completely in the category of speculation.
Yeah. I was just presenting it as sort
Mm-hmm.
of the
Sure.
mindset that usually gets brought
Mm-hmm.
up, which is like, well, a company wouldn't make something to sell you unless they had an incentive to sell it.
True. Absolutely.
Now,
True.
obviously, I have my
Mm-hmm.
facsimile to this, which has been the Tales
Mm-hmm.
games.
Yeah.
The Tales games have always been what I point to whenever someone says that, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
have played way too many modern Tales games, and I can definitely tell you,
Mm-hmm.
they're not stopping me from fucking finishing the game all because of these
Yeah.
microtransactions.
I've played them all from Grace's F onward, and Grace's F had DLC like that.
Yeah.
Pretty much every title since Grace's F had DLC like that. That gives you additional level ups, additional money, additional equipment, things like that. I never used any of that, and I didn't never had a problem because of it.
I've
So,
played a decent
mm,
amount of Arise so far, and honestly,
mm-hmm.
I've not need I've never.
Yeah.
Maybe I might give them money for costumes, but that's just because some of the costumes they have for sale just look cool, and I just want to help support the game.
Mm-hmm.
But that's about it. So okay, so this is it. So this is interesting, right? Because all
Mm-hmm.
this stuff. Because yeah, my initial thought was because I saw a lot of the discourse around this
Mm-hmm.
as being like Dragon's Dogma 2 is tainted. And I'm like, really?
Mm-hmm.
Tainted? But like, even I knew that Dragon's Dogma 1 had like a bunch of microtransactions. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think I've never engaged with them, but I know they were there. I screenshotted it. It's actually in our
Mm-hmm.
Discord chat right now. I screenshotted the page from the
Mm-hmm.
PS3 store. They're
Mm-hmm.
there. There's a bunch of them. I think there's 28 for the original Dragon's
Mm-hmm.
Dogma. The Dark Arisen version does not
Or
have
28, I
those.
guess.
Does not have those.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I did check today on Steam if Dark Arisen had any DLC entries. It didn't.
No,
So
it does not. So
yeah.
it looks like it was mostly just the
Mm-hmm.
original. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like I my thing is I wonder why people just didn't bring this up. Like when it came to like Yakuza
Yeah.
and the New Game Plus thing,
Interesting.
at least
Mm-hmm.
that was a case of I didn't
That's
know it was
yeah.
gonna be there, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that was a lot more forgivable because like every single one of
It,
them was like they didn't tell us and I didn't know until the game launched. Elsewise, it would
and
have been
that's a
in the
valid
video.
and that's a valid feature locked behind um, DLC argument. That's a valid feature locked behind money argument. This? No.
Yeah, these
This is
most
time savers. Nothing else.
it's time savers, and there's I don't think the game has been out long enough for people to really know whether or not these
Mm-hmm.
time savers have altered the way the game works enough to justify the
Mm-hmm.
argument. Now, don't
So
get me
far
wrong.
from our friend from the other Discord, doesn't seem to. Stuff like money you need and all for buying stuff, and the crystals that you need for port teleports and stuff. it's abundant in the game. Even money-wise, you get more than enough even at the start. So there's really hardly any. So far, there's no change apparent. I'm wondering if maybe later on there will be, but I doubt it at this point,
And
honestly.
honestly, if I was to be 100% honest, the game has bigger
Hmm.
issues than these microtransactions.
It does have some performance issues, yeah.
The performance
Although
issues.
interestingly, it's mainly NPC driven apparently.
Yeah, that's the crazy. That was the thing I noticed in
Hmm.
who's the review? I can't fuck the Digital Foundry. I watched
Hmm.
their coverage because I was gonna
Yeah.
pick it up on PS5 and I wanted to get an
Hmm.
idea of how the game was before I wasted my money before I bought it. And the
Hmm.
thing is, like the 30 FPS thing, not my biggest problem. I'm fine with
Hmm.
that. Whatever, fine. I played the original Dragon's Dogma. It was 30. I don't care. The FPS thing does
Hmm.
not bother me that much. But yeah,
Hmm.
surprisingly enough, it looks like it was the NPCs that caused the majority of the issues, which is
Hmm.
because they're like
Yeah, probably
the towns drop the FPS.
pathfinding is a likely issue, I would say. But we're
Mm.
gonna have to wait and see what they do. I mean, it might be patchable. We'll see. But it definitely, what I've heard so far, it's mainly that because what's apparently not a problem is just when you're out in the world and exploring and fighting monsters. There seems to be no issue there,
Yeah,
from what
no
I've
one. Yeah, that doesn't seem to be a problem. And the
heard. Hmm.
people I've seen that played the game prior to launch didn't seem to have any. Didn't seem to talk about any massive issues that they experienced with it, which is why I was kind of surprised at
Hmm.
people claiming the game was busted at launch. I'm like, really? Because all these people covered the game pre-launch and were like, oh yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, it's 30 FPS. That's kind of a bummer, but the game still does well. So I was like, really? It's always interesting when you have that pre-launch launch disconnect where like the
Hmm.
pre-launch side of it's like, oh, the game's great, and then the game comes out and it's like, oh, the game's busted, and it's like, oh, wait a minute,
Hmm.
guys, hold on a second. There's a big leap between good game
Hmm.
and busted title.
Yeah, and then you have to have a look at hmm, what actually is the reality. It's often sometimes in the middle.
It's always
Hmm.
somewhere in the middle. Okay, so
Hmm.
this is actually really cool. I actually did watch
Uh-huh.
this prior to this
Uh-huh.
episode, and it was they did Marvel Games writer Amy Hennig presents the technical
Yes.
marvels of 1943 Rise of Hydra created in Unreal Engine 5.4. I watched
Hmm.
the video
Hmm.
of this presentation. It is so cool. It is so cool. Like they're literally
Hmm.
pulling assets and like removing assets in real time and like taking off the helmets of characters and then having a scene play out without the helmet, putting the helmet
Yeah,
back on, then letting part of the scene
neat.
play out with it. And it's all in real time. And I believe them for the way that they show it. Two,
Hmm.
the scene they show is mwah, it's so good. I love it so much because Captain
Yeah.
America is just an asshole. Captain America is just an asshole. Like he is
Hmm.
not putting up with Black Panther's shit in this clip. He is just not
Hmm.
having that shit. And what I love the most, as always, Black Panther's like, bro, that shield belongs to my people. That is not yours. And Captain America doesn't even argue with him. He's just like, yo, fuck you. We fighting. That's it. I'm not even wasting my time trying to justify this shield. You want the shield? Fucking take it from me. So I will
Hmm.
definitely have a link to this in our show notes. Definitely give this a watch. I really enjoyed this tech demo.
Hmm.
Obviously my skepticism was kind of there because I'm like, oh, this looks really cool. But how cool is this? How
Mhm.
about like am I even gonna see near this much coolness whenever this game actually comes out, when it's brought to like
We'll
actual
see.
users systems? And like, I don't know,
Gonna be interesting to see
tech
that. Yeah.
demos are cool. Don't get me wrong. I love
Hmm.
showing off new tech. But then my brain instantly goes, okay, that's cool.
Granted, it wouldn't be the first time when there's a downgrade in between presentation at some event and then the actual release. I'm looking at you, Watch Dogs,
But
and
Watch Dogs,
several other titles. Hmm.
I don't know, man. Watch Dogs is like
Hmm.
that. It's like that special point in history that's like so egregious.
Hmm.
It was such an egregious lie. Like, it was such an egregious
Hmm.
mistruth to show that, and then have the game come out and it is not even close. Maybe a lie is probably being a little over the top. I guess lie is probably not the
Yeah, the
right
thing.
word. Uh,
Yeah, it's.
Mistruth?
I mean,
Half truth?
it's it's certainly it's certainly gonna be far from the first time that happened. It's just the first time that there was such a spotlight on it. Let's call it that.
Yeah, the
Because I think before. Let me think. Assassin's Creed Unity was later, I think.
yeah, Assassin's Creed. No,
That's probably
maybe.
some, or was that earlier? Let's see.
God, Assassin's Creed Unity. Jesus Christ. Gee,
But
hold on.
sure, that wasn't a thing. Like it looks much better there in the presentation, and it looks much worse there. But that was a whole other issue. But that was also one of those release fuck ups. Let's see here. Unity, yeah, 2014. Oh, that was slightly later. Yeah, that was November 2014, and Watch Dogs came out in May 2014. So that was definitely not good timing. That's two big ones in a year. That wasn't
I
good. Wasn't a good year for Ubisoft.
Yeah, both of those. I don't know. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
Watch Dogs is way more just cemented in my mind as like
Mm-hmm.
this
Yeah,
this
because it
get
was a really big
this
one.
as the gaming
Yeah.
zeitgeist, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
of like what
Yeah,
you're shown
the
and what you get. It's mm.
the outcry was far bigger with that one. It was really big on that one in comparison to previous ones because I'd have to check what else happened previous to that, but I'm pretty sure there have been quite a few things like that where
Oh,
the shown material at some conference is far different from what actually released.
I totally believe that none of that those two cases
Mm-hmm.
aren't like the first. I'm not even saying that they're
Yeah,
the first. I'm
yeah,
simply saying
not.
that when you think about the idea of like misadvertising or just over
Mm-hmm.
promising, I guess
Yeah, yeah,
that
definitely overpromising.
those are the ones that like
Mm-hmm.
are very clear.
Nowadays, that's on the top of one's head when you think about this. Maybe it's a bit overpronounced in terms of that, but it's definitely one of the big ones because this was a, n- a new IP and had really big promises at the time, and then yeah, we got what we got.
We definitely got what we got. So our last story for this week was one
So
that
it's gonna be interesting that what Amy Henning brings us this time
oh yeah, that
after
I'm
her exit from Naughty Dog.
Used to with Nana.
This is her
I'm
first big work since then, I think.
like I said, the tech demo alone made me go, okay, that looks so cool.
Mm.
But I don't know if it's the game I thought was cool or the concept or just the tech that they were I think it was the tech they were
Let's hope it will be
demonstrating.
both. Yeah, because we
Yeah,
didn't see that much of the game. We saw a
yeah.
little bit of gameplay, a bit of story, but I think I think the hope is that both is really good when it releases. Yeah, let's see.
Yes.
Yes, Uncharted Golden Abyss. Yeah, yeah, she was story writer for Battlefield Hardline and concept story concept for Forspoken. So yeah, this is definitely her first big one since Uncharted stuff.
So yeah, that
So let's
was.
hope that one holds up since
Yeah, I'm
she's
looking.
producer and writer with this one.
Please be good.
Hmm. Yeah.
Please be good.
Let's hope so. But we're gonna have to wait until next year for that, at least.
Yeah, see, and this is actually something that's like this comes up a lot in the conversations about like modern game development. If we're not
Hmm.
if like games take like an exorbitant amount of time to create. Now we know like we all know games take a while, but like the big
Hmm.
AAA games, right? You're talking what, 5, 6 years depending on the game?
Depends. It can vary quite a bit. Can
Yeah.
vary quite a bit. And it also depends if you count concept phase and all that. So pre-production,
Oh,
production depends
I
on
don't.
what the because pre-production, so concept phase and all that can already take some time, but that only involves comparatively few people. But then the production phase, that one can vary very much depending on the game.
I would,
And it also depends on where, if it's a standalone title, if it's just another part of a series, if it's a spin-off or whatever.
yeah,
There's a lot of variations.
I don't have enough knowledge
Hmm.
or concept to even know
Yeah.
where you would even want to even consider pressing
Hmm.
the proverbial stopwatch and be like,
Yeah.
development starts now. And I don't even
Hmm.
know if that even works that way. I don't know how a company or like a development team when they finish can go, "Oh, we were in development for so many years." Oh,
Hmm.
really? How did you come up with that number? When did you officially press the stopwatch on that? Is it is it when you start actually creating like assets and everything? You're actually creating the assets within like, not like on paper, but like actually at a
Hmm.
desk creating things, or are you counting the rough script, the rough drafting, and like having someone sit down and draw up ideas for things? It's
Hmm.
interesting. It's all
Yeah.
very interesting. I would love to
'Cause
know where that timer
I think
starts.
3 4 years is definitely a time when if you have a quick development, I think 3 4 years is definitely in the cards, but longer can also happen quite often. I mean, Suicide Squad took, I think, 7 years or something like that, so that's on the
People,
longer side.
cause yeah, but I don't know. I've heard about Suicide Squad, and again,
Mm-hmm.
I will openly
Mm-hmm.
admit I have not done as much research about that
Mm-hmm.
train wreck as I probably should have.
Mm-hmm.
But I was sort of
Mm-hmm.
under the impression that was less of just development taking a while and, more, and a lot of starting
Mm-hmm.
and stopping. Like they started
Yeah, but
developing and then they scrapped it.
that's also effectively development time. Even if you can't use it, that's I'd count that as development time for that title.
Oh, okay. Hey, man, you.
Because while yeah, that's much of what happened earlier isn't in the final product. You still took that time and invested time and money into that title, essentially. That's why that's why you count, for example, Duke Nukem Forever as taking 12 years. And you don't even want to know how many restarts that had.
Bro, I have heard horror stories
Mm-hmm.
about Duke Nukem Forever. Apparently, the director from what
Mm-hmm.
I've heard, from what I've like learned and heard about, like
Mm-hmm.
something new would come out and then he'd be like, I want that. And then
Mm-hmm.
something else would come
Yep.
out and then he'd be like, we're implementing that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, they
oh my
switched engines multiple times.
oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that was an issue.
I remember our like when people show clips from like the early trailers for Duke Nukem
Mm-hmm.
Forever, like
Completely different engine.
oh, I was going
Essentially completely different game.
I was gonna say like to me those aren't just
Mm-hmm.
like historical. I remember
Mm-hmm.
those being like actual live material to advertise the game.
Mm-hmm.
That was a thing
Yep.
I grew up with. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? I experienced the hype cycle for that game and then the game just never happened. So, you
Yeah,
know.
not in that form. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that game never happened. A form of Duke Nukem Forever happened, but
Yeah, not
not
that
what
one.
they originally envisioned. Far from that.
So CD, you put
Mm-hmm.
on the last story for this week. A little something
Mm-hmm.
something that apparently caught your attention.
Ah, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, several years ago, a small company named Obsidian made a spy action RPG, which was called Alpha Protocol. And that one has been out of circulation for a few years now. They had delisted it from Steam and pretty much everywhere due to, I think the main reason was the soundtrack, because they didn't have
Yeah.
the rights to the music anymore.
Yeah, music's a
And
killer.
now GOG went ahead and released it again.
Do they have to change the music?
Uh, from what I know, they licensed it again. It's
Oh,
complete
they
with
license.
the
Oh,
original soundtrack from back then. Yeah.
oh well, shit. All right, all right,
Mm-hmm.
shit.
And they even added some stuff like achievement support and also potentially they maybe they fixed some things. They certainly made it work on current Windows versions, so there has to have been some work done there, which is good because obviously after a while there are some issues there.
I
Maybe they even fixed some other bugs, but I don't know exactly about that. There's hope, but not sure.
yeah,
Certainly good to have it available again.
yeah, I think a lot of these games, you know, like licensing is definitely a thing. Like losing the
Mm-hmm.
rights to something and then the
Yeah.
publisher just is like, eh, whatever. Like, there was one
In
game
some of
that
the GTAs, I think they remove some of the radio stations over time.
yeah, there was actually a game that got delisted off. That got delisted. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if I think like on all platforms, at least a few platforms it was still available on, which was Spec
Mm-hmm.
Ops: The Line. You
Mm-hmm. Right,
probably
yeah.
heard
Mm-hmm.
about it,
Yep.
which
Yep.
which
I remember. Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah, soundtrack again. Mm.
made me happy that I actually
Yeah.
do own a copy of it for PS3 sitting on my shelf. I
Mm-hmm.
bought that because I really just wanted to play this really goofy military shooter that I knew had
Mm-hmm.
some really weird shit in it. So I bought me a
Mm-hmm.
copy only to find out it got delisted and then I'm like, well shit, maybe I
Mm-hmm.
made the right choice for a change.
Yeah. I mean, sure, if you had bought it before digitally, you'd still have it, but yeah, not. But now there's no way to buy it digitally. It's
Oh
just
dude,
pretty much the same with a lot of licensed titles, like trans several Transformers games, for example, like the Platinum one, Transformers Devastation, the War for Cybertron, and Fall of Cybertron, I think it was. Uh,
yeah.
those titles from what was it, High Noon Studios or something like that, I think. Yeah.
Multiple Capcom fighters that
Mm-hmm.
were
Yeah.
multiple Capcom fighters, so Cap Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and 2,
Mm-hmm.
Children of the Atom, there were multiple. Oh, X-Men the arcade game got delisted as well.
Mm-hmm.
Simpson,
Yep.
bro, listen, the 360
Mm-hmm.
PS3 era, homie, we was eating out here. We was eating good.
Mm-hmm.
Like looking back at what was out on the arcade, dog, we was
Mm-hmm.
feasting.
Yeah. Was that Simpsons Hit and Run?
No, it was the
Or
original
or
Simpsons
what was
arcade.
that called? Simpsons arcade game. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
But if it was
Yeah,
anything,
licensed titles are often a victim in this. A casualty, more like. Hmm.
but if it was anything like the other arcade games that got released on Xbox and PS3, they were
Mm-hmm.
unreasonably difficult because
Ah.
they did not let you add more quarters. You just had to
Oh,
put.
okay.
Yeah, no, I
Hmm.
have the digital
Interesting.
version of the
Uh-huh.
Turtles arcade,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't like press a button and add
Uh-huh.
quarters. You just have to play the game
Interesting.
with the lives that
I
you
have to
start with. Yeah,
restart. Mm-hmm.
that is
Yeah, okay.
fucking rough, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking rough.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like pretty much what would happen in regular console ports, even back in the early 90s and stuff, like with NES titles and the like. Because most of the time, even if it's an arcade port, you have just a limited amount of continues, if you
Right.
even have continues, depending on the game.
If you even have continuous, Jesus Christ.
Hmm.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And even
But
if it's sometimes called the arcade game, like Terminator 2 had, I think, one that was that. There were multiple versions of Terminator 2. One was called, I think, the arcade game, or was at least more arcade style. And I think the Turtles game, one of them was also a port of the arcade one, or at least called the arcade game,
so yeah, there are
which
plenty
probably also
of.
had limited continues.
There's a
Mm.
reason I never. There's a reason I still have my 360 because there are a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things on that console that like if I got rid of my 360, I just would never have
Mm-hmm.
access to again. Like the fact that I still have a
Yeah.
copy of Marvel vs. Capcom 2, like
Mm-hmm.
that copy, like that version of it, like we still haven't seen a release of it now. The only
Mm-hmm.
release that we've seen of that game was an arcade one up cabinet
Ah. Mm-hmm.
since.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Mm.
And that likely will probably
That's
never
rough.
actually yeah, it's likely we'll never actually see it just because of what would have to come
Mm-hmm.
together to like make that happen, especially now
Mm-hmm.
that like Disney owns Marvel and like the X-Men franchises. They have it's all like yeah, I get it. Like trying to get access to that shit when it was like Disney and Fox who owned the
Mm-hmm.
things in it might wouldn't have been very easy either, but if Disney
Yeah.
just owns all of it, yeah, good luck. The
Mm-hmm.
House of Mouse isn't really going to let that slide.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. That's something like that really makes you look at something like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate in a different light.
I have to just assume that everybody in that industry just loves Sakurai.
Mm.
They just
He's a
they
magician. He's
they
a
just
wizard.
they love it has to be like
Mm-hmm.
because according to him, at
Yeah.
least the things he said, they already
Mm-hmm.
knew all the DLC characters. I would assume either once the game was finished or before the game was finished. So they knew it. They knew what the DLC characters were going to be relatively early.
Or rather, what they wanted to have
Yeah,
them be.
what they wanted.
Yeah,
And
because there were things like obviously Kingdom Hearts one where they probably didn't know from the beginning.
if they would even
They
be able to
knew
pull
that
that
what they
off.
want that one. They knew that they want that one, especially at the time of the survey.
Megan
They
Hall,
already
the
knew they want that character and want to have him. And I don't think at the time they knew they're gonna have him, but they were still working on it. And yeah, it worked. They managed to do that. So yeah, he must have skilled his he must have put quite a few skill points in his
Persuasion.
uh persuasion and charisma stat.
Yeah, so like
Yeah, he's really good.
like when you look at like the amount of moving parts that would have to come together to
Mm-hmm.
make something like Smash Brothers Ultimate happen,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
even the base roster before you get to the DLC, like just the base roster, the amount of moving
Mm-hmm.
parts you'd actually have to make happen, such as
Mm-hmm.
having Solid Snake and then being able to make sure David Hayter is able to voice him, like the to be able to have all these moving parts and it all work out. I don't know, man. That to me that's about as close as modern magic as you're probably gonna get. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be hard pressed
Yeah,
for you
certainly agreed.
to find another instance where magic is real and not point to Smash.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't. I would not put it by to say I don't know if we'd ever. I don't know how likely we'd ever see something of that magnitude all coming together in the way it did. I feel like a lot of that probably was Sakurai. I At least
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
from the way it's presented, it looks like Sakurai had a lot of power in that situation to like talk to these people and like even start the conversation.
I
Although
mean, I
I
wouldn't be surprised.
although I will say his video where he demonstrates Terry, the
Mm-hmm.
man was an arcade fiend. He doesn't
Yeah.
yeah,
He
like
is he is extremely passionate in this whole
he
project, or was
he
it
did
with
an
that one?
entire bit about
Yeah.
the Neo Geo and about the
Mm-hmm.
controller and about the cartridges, things that you just wouldn't expect a guy making a video game to just start talking about in a video. Like, bro, like I
And
believe
not
it.
in that detail, yeah.
Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
like he was an arcade fiend. Like when I
Yeah.
saw that, I was like, okay, I know what you about, homie. You was in the arcade with the quarters, weren't you? You was in there. All
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yeah. He's definitely passionate about that, given how many changes Super Smash Bros. Has gone through just for for the additional characters. Damn, that's not just adding a new character in there and giving him some moves. That's
No, no.
those changes have been. Whew.
Yeah, that's impressive. Anyways,
Mhm.
everybody, I will only halfway apologize for the show going on a little longer than usual. As always, you can find us on a variety of platforms such as Google, Apple, and Spotify, and on our YouTube channel, Turn Based Cynics, where the video version of our show will go up. And I hope you all have a fantastic week and play all these good fucking video games. And remember, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen, always be a little skeptical. Don't always just if if the crowd says one thing, maybe raise a little bit of a brow and go, huh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's why is the crowd like that all of a sudden? What's going on? Just a
Do a
little
bit
bit.
of checking.
Yeah, a little.
Do a bit of fact check.
Yeah, a little fact checking never. I mean, sometimes fact checking can hurt. I don't always enjoy fact checking stories either. I'm still kind of annoyed that I went through all that hassle to fucking fact check the Pal World story only to find out there was
Mm.
nothing there. Only to find out there was nothing there. I was pissed about that, dude. I put some effort into like
Mhm.
digging through leads on that one, only to find out that it was a giant nothing burger.
And so far, nothing has materialized there.
Yeah,
Interestingly.
it was literally nothing. There was literally nothing there. I literally nothing. If something was gonna happen, it would have happened long before now. So yeah, nothing there. Thanks. Appreciate wasting my time there, ladies and gentlemen. But
Yeah.
you know what? Sometimes, for every story we take where I get to dig up a juicy lead and have something worthwhile, you're gonna have to dig up a handful of fucking turds.
Hmm. It
It's
happens.
it happens way more than I'm proud of, but it does happen. So in any case, everybody, have a fantastic week. Continue playing them fucking video games,
Hell yeah.
and we'll see you all next time.
See ya.